Good morning, Los Angeles. My friend, Stephen Haglund. What's up, man? How you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing good, man. Happy to be here, talk some football. Ready for a Chargers win today and ready to dive into all these LA teams.
Yeah, it's good to be back. LAFB live here on the LA Football Network. Good slate of games, good chance for some teams to bounce back, specifically our Chargers, which is just going to be a Chargers heavy live show. For those that don't know, we will be at Golden Road in just, I don't know, a couple hours from now, previewing this Rams Titans game. So we're going to do a live show from there, which will be all Rams. So we'll do mostly Chargers talk today, which I know fits right up your alley, Steven. So it's perfect. So, but how's the weekend been so far?
It's been good, man. Yeah, it's been good. I had to do a college and careers night this week at work. So worked 12-hour shifts on Thursday and Friday, which was crazy. But Friday got to get home just in time for the Utah Stanford game. Was expecting a bit of a challenge, turned into a blowout. Yeah.
Nail biter for you.
So it was really funny because if we had moved the college and careers night, Brooke and I would have been driving up to see the game because it's only 2.5 hours for us to Stanford. So we were both talking during the game. We're like, man, we were really glad we didn't go spend money on this.
I mean, at least your team won, but no point spending money when it's that big of a blowout, not even a football game.
Right. So it was fun. And then Saturday we actually went to the Fresno State Boise State game.
Another nail biter.
So Fresno State just did not show up at all, which is actually good for the Utes because they were ahead of us in the rankings. So that was fun. And then just hanging out today watching some NFL games.
Yeah, it's crazy. Utah, I think they look like the best team in the South right now. So I think they're
100%
probably going to end up winning the South, which you said all along. I was skeptical after those first couple weeks.
I was too, man.
They've put it together somehow. Say what you want. I mean, I know you've loved him. You've been critical, but you love him. But I mean, I think Kyle Whittingham is probably the best coach in the Pac-12. I mean, just what he does year in and year out, week in and week out.
There's nobody in the country better at rallying the troops than Kyle Whittingham. Like anytime that this team has had adversity, and this year it's been a ton of adversity, right? Yeah. For those who are familiar with what has happened there. So there's nobody in the country that's better at rallying the troops through adversity than Kyle Whittingham. And after like midway through the third quarter, before they finally put in Cam Rising, I was like, this team is done. Like this team is not going to win even 6 games to get to a bowl game. And here I am, 2 months later, thinking that they have a legitimate shot at winning the Pac-12 title against Oregon. So been a wild ride for the Utes this year.
Yeah. It'll be fun to see how it, who do they got next on their schedule? I don't even know.
So they play at Arizona this week. So
win.
They could probably start their backup and still win pretty easily.
Yeah.
Then they host Oregon in 2 weeks.
Big one.
And then they wrap up the season hosting Colorado the day after Thanksgiving.
Win. Okay. Oregon's so hard to project because some weeks they look really damn good. And then some weeks they're like, okay, this team is extremely beatable. So I don't really know how to put my finger on Oregon.
Yeah, it's a really weird situation for Utah because I think we can beat them twice, but at the same time, it's so hard in college football to do that.
Yeah.
And the best chance of beating Oregon is at home, and Utah is, I think they've won like 18 of their last 20 games at home. The 2 losses coming during the COVID year. So, it's such a tough place to play. It's going to be cold and, not to say that Oregon can't handle weather, but it's a lot of things going in Utah's favor in that one. Probably going to be a night game. So I think Utah probably wins that one. They're favored right now on ESPN's FBI projections. But yeah, you never really know with Oregon. And you probably have to beat them twice, which is just very tough to really think it's realistically going to happen.
Yeah, it all comes down to their quarterback play because Anthony Thomas some weeks or some drives looks really good and other drives looks not good at all. And
I mean, when he played UCLA, the first 3 quarters were awesome, and then in the fourth quarter he had 2 turnovers, just looked like a completely different player.
Yeah,
and they almost lost.
Back in it. Yeah, if DTR doesn't go out in that last drive, it could be having a very different conversation. So. Before we get to this Chargers-Eagles matchup, we got to at least mention USC. Another loss last night to Arizona State. 31-16 or something was the final. We were talking a little pre-air how it's frustrating that they keep kind of doing this 2-quarterback system. A lot of colleges do it, but I think when most colleges do it, it's because the quarterbacks have like a different skill set that they bring to it.
Yes.
This is not that case. Jackson Darsh is a bigger, stronger arm, younger, fresher quarterback. And I think he can run this offense a little better too, even in his young age. But they just keep going back and forth. I know you asked me, but I'll just toss to you first. Like, what's your thoughts on that? Why they're doing that, or just why is it frustrating to you?
Yeah, I think from just like I enjoy watching good football and I enjoy watching smart coaches.
And then you
And
don't enjoy watching USC this year. So.
no, I don't. And so like I just think when you are dealing with a quarterback of the future situation, which is what this is in USC, it doesn't make any sense to me to limit the amount of snaps you're giving the quarterback of the future. You know, you have this lame duck quarterback in Keaton Slovis, who I was never really a big believer in. And, you know, you have Jackson Dart, who is the quarterback of the future. So to me, like it makes the most sense at this point in the season to give Dart 100% of the snaps. And from like a different standpoint, like you mentioned, teams that do multi-quarterback systems, one is always a runner. Like you look at like what Florida did last year with Kyle Trask and Emory Jones. Well, Kyle Trask can't run the football, so you bring in Emory Jones to do that Wildcat kind of package. That I can understand. That I can get behind.
Yeah.
But when you have two quarterbacks who are both pocket passers, both, you know, guys who need time and rhythm to really get going, it just doesn't make any sense to me what Dante Jackson, is it right? Or Dante Williams?
Dante Williams, yeah.
Dante Williams. It doesn't make sense what he's doing right now. Just pick one. You know, you have 3 games left. I assume eventually he probably will hand the reins over to Dart. But you're just kind of doing a disservice to both quarterbacks in this one because, you know, Slovis, the older guy, he's a rhythm-based quarterback. You're not allowing him to get in the rhythm. Mm-hmm. And then Dart, he needs these reps for the future, and you're robbing him of very valuable reps. So just pick one. Like, I don't get it. It's not fun to watch. And like I said, it's just a disservice to both players.
Well, you hit the nail on the head with one word there, and it's both these quarterbacks and this offense is rhythm. That's so important to run this offensive scheme. And when you're continually switching up the quarterback play, you're never going to have the rhythm. I mean, if anything, which I don't even like this, but go quarter by quarter. Like, don't just do like 2 drives here, 1 drive here. Like, at least have a little bit of more, or like half and half, unless like someone's playing horrible, then you can switch back, obviously. But the only thing, and this is what I told you pre-air, the only thing I can like think of, because when you watch Dart out there, you can see he's a freshman. You can see there's still some progression stuff he has to work through, some, you know, gunslinging mentality he has to work through. I mean, when you throw 68 touchdowns as a high school senior, like you're going to trust your arm a little more than you probably can once you're playing in Power 5 college football. But you can see obviously the intangibles he has. But aside from that, you just see the juice when he's out there. It's like the offense has like a breath of life. And when Slovis comes back in, and this is nothing against him. Like, he's a great kid, and I know he's a captain of the team, and I'm sure his teammates love him, but it just looks like the offense regresses and just takes a big step back. So the only thing I can think of at all is that after Dart's first start, he ends up having surgery, misses the next 3 to 5 weeks. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then they've worked him back in slowly, and maybe his knee is not 100% go. Obviously, it's good enough to go where he can play, but maybe they're like, you know what? This is a tough season anyway. Like, we're just all out here fighting for each other, but we know national championship, we know probably even a bowl game is not even really in reach. We don't want to hurt our future. Like, we don't want to take any chances of the guy who's our future and hurting him. I'm not saying that's what for sure is going on. That's just the only thing I can think of, because otherwise it makes no sense.
Yeah, and even to that point, it's like, if he's not healthy,
then don't put him out there at all.
Don't put him out there at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I said, it just feels like they're doing a disservice to both players, because, you know, Keaton Slovis, he needs that rhythm, especially with Drake London out. Like, this isn't a situation where the offense is at, you know, peak form. Like, you're missing your best player. So let Slovis get into a rhythm if that's your goal. If your goal is to win with Slovis, then robbing him of these reps and rhythm just doesn't make any sense. If your goal is to build for the future, then robbing Dart of these reps doesn't make sense either. And, you know, like you're saying, it sounds like they probably have a better chance of winning games with Dart too. So I just don't get it. I'm not a fan of it. And I wish they would just pick one.
Yeah, I don't. we'll try to dig more into that because that is actually a good question that we could put up on LAFB Network and see what the deal is. Last thing about this, do you think, just off the top of your head, do you think Slovis enters the draft this year? Do you think he tries to transfer and get one more year somewhere else to raise his stock? Because I mean, I think his stock's pretty low right now. I don't think it's going to be pretty high. I think just because of what he's done over his career, he could still be a mid-round pick. But it's getting lower and lower each week, which he could probably raise if he goes somewhere and has a great season. But do you think he takes that chance, or?
I think he should, like, from a Slovis standpoint, he should transfer, because like you said, his stock has never been lower.
Yeah.
And, this quarterback class isn't great. So, like, maybe someone would talk themselves into him, especially if he, has like a good off season and can kind of gain some momentum at some of the all-star games or whatever. If he's even eligible. I don't know if he's eligible for the Senior Bowl. But
he's not yet. No.
Okay. So he doesn't have momentum right now. And so if I were him, I would transfer, play one more season somewhere else, ideally somewhere that fits his skill set. He's in a very similar situation as Spencer Rattler, right? Like, these two players who were being talked about as like top 5 quarterbacks heading into the year. Now they both probably need to transfer and play somewhere else.
Yeah. Just to put it into context, Matt Barkley, who was a prolific quarterback at USC, I think before even Darnold had like a lot of records there, and he ended up being a 4th-round pick. So Slovis, I don't think anyone right now would argue Slovis is better than what Matt Barkley did at USC. Obviously, different quarterbacks, different intangibles. Like, I'm not talking about film, X's and O's, but when you just look at their body of work. So I don't think Slovis would be going any higher than that. But we'll see what happens with that. So it'll be interesting to see. We still got UCLA, USC, which will still be a fun game regardless of how bad these teams are playing right now. But yeah,
that's next week, right?
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
The 20th.
All right.
November 20th. Yeah, I'll be there. Can't wait. It's always a fun one. So, all right, let's get into this Chargers game. Well, the bread and butter, or the meat of the LAFB Live topic today. So, Chargers coming off 2 tough weeks. They had a bye week sandwiched in there. First of all, let me just open up to you, because there's been so much criticism of this coaching staff over these last 2 weeks. And, when you lose, I get it. But, we knew all along there's going to be growing pains throughout the year. We knew there was going to be stuff implementing new things. And then me and you have talked a bunch, obviously, with what we do, and then just, going back and forth on Twitter, that we don't agree with that really assessment of what fans are doing. So let me just open up to you, and just before we get into this next preview, give me your thoughts on this coaching staff through, what are we, 8 weeks in, 9 weeks in?
Yeah, I think that they have kind of lived up to my expectations of the preseason. First time head coach, first time defensive coordinator, second time offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a lot of veteran presence on this coaching staff, and I think we've seen a lot of that kind of bleed through in so far in the season, be it in the early parts of the season with the illegal shifts, and now there's just a lot of miscommunications going on both sides. So I think we're seeing the fruits of that. I think where the frustration lies with people on Twitter is that this team was 4-1, and everybody was talking Super Bowl, including myself, including our show. Like, we were buying all the hype, right? Especially with how wide open the AFC was and is, so I think a lot of people's expectations changed. And so you lose back-to-back games in very disappointing fashion. And I can understand the frustrations. The offense has not looked very smooth these past couple games, outside of the first drive against the Patriots. And, the second drive was really, the second touchdown drive rather, was aided by Justin Jackson's 75-yard touchdown. And
great run, by the way.
Yeah, great run. Other than, like 2 or 3 drives the last 2 games, it has not been smooth sailing. So I understand the frustration in terms of like the overall offense. What I disagree with, and I know you feel the same way, is like the rationale behind, being frustrated with Joe Lombardi. As Tyler is pointing out, Lombardi sucks more deep shots, Steven. That's the narrative, right? Is that just Joe Lombardi is making Justin Herbert regress. Like the previous coaching regime, it was better at, scheming up deep shots. And I just could not disagree more. And it's so funny to me, like, how narratives change, because we all watched last season and the miscommunications and how awful it was against the Bills and against the Patriots and against all these teams, against the Falcons. And everybody was talking about Shane Steichen being like the worst offensive coordinator they had ever seen. And now, because they're frustrated with Joe Lombardi, they want Shane Steichen back. They wish that they had kept Shane Steichen. So it's just wild to me. I don't get it. The film is showing me that they are designing deep plays. Brandon Staley is saying that they are designing deep plays. Tyler pointed out on his own personal Twitter page that Justin Herbert is averaging essentially like 0.5 less deep shots per game than last year. So it's basically the same.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not hitting like the 50-yard touchdowns consistently like they were last year. They're just more like 20-yard passes, 25-yard passes. And so the narratives are just frustrating to me, and I don't agree with them at all.
Well, and I know no one ever likes to say this, and it's not a condemnation or saying this guy's going to be a bum now, but Justin Herbert just hasn't played good for 2 weeks.
No, he hasn't.
It's as simple as that. Justin Herbert, who is a top 10 quarterback in this league, who has an extremely bright future, who is going to be very, very good for many, many years, has had 2 bad weeks. I mean, we can just say it as it is. He's missed open receivers. He's miscommunicated things. The thing that frustrates me, and I'm not going to be overcritical. The guy is a second-year quarterback in this league, learning a brand new system with new defenses coming at him that he has film on him now. But anytime there's a mistake, it's like everyone wants to blame everyone else but Justin Herbert. It's like, okay, some of these routes that everyone's like, oh, the receiver ran the wrong route. I'm like, no, I mean, that was probably on Herbert, who literally threw it before the receiver was even looking at it. Like, some maybe. I know when you have those option routes, it's all about communication and what you practice. But there was one option route that the receiver made the right call. Like, he sat down in the zone and was wide open, and Herbert threw it to a different spot, which ended up it was on a 4th down play. And it's just what it is. Like, he just hasn't played good in 2 weeks. It's not saying he's going to be bad the rest of the year. It's just been 2 bad weeks.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of contributing factors to why the offense hasn't played great, and Justin Herbert not playing very well is, to me, the number one issue right now. And, against the Ravens, when their game was still kind of within reach, they go for it on 4th down. They target Josh Palmer against Marlon Humphrey, and, the Justin Herbert, he threw a bad ball. Like, it was as simple as that. Josh Palmer beats Marlon Humphrey. He gets open. He does his job. Yeah. And then the ball sails towards the inside. Like, maybe it's a miscommunication. Maybe it's a bad ball. But to me, that's on Justin Herbert. And then against the Patriots, this is a play that I tweeted out. Mike Williams does an inside release. He gets open for at minimum a 40-yard gain. And Justin Herbert throws the ball to the sideline, as opposed to leading him for a potential touchdown. So maybe it's a miscommunication. Maybe it's a bad throw. Whatever. That, to me, is on Justin Herbert. So he's not played very well. I think he will bounce back. The things that he has struggled with the last couple of games, to me, are heavily related to the pressure that he has felt from the offensive line. The Ravens ran a ton of cover 0. And so it became a guessing game. Like, okay, I have 7 guys on the line. I have 5 blockers. Who's coming? I don't know. And then against the Patriots, it was a lot of disguise. It was a lot of post-snap movement. It was a lot of cover 2. And he was just kind of off. And then Matthew Judon has 11 pressures and 3 sacks or whatever it was.
All-pro game.
Yeah, like the best game of his career by far. And so that's a contributing factor as well. And then so today against the Eagles, they still have Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, but they do not blitz like ever. So I think Justin Herbert will be fine today. I think he's going to bounce back in a very good way. But yeah, it's obviously been frustrating. But to me, blaming it all on Joe Lombardi is really not fair to Joe Lombardi. I think against the Patriots, he called a very good game. Against the Ravens, I didn't love the game plan. So if you want to criticize him for the Ravens game, that's fine. But this talk of like, we need to fire Joe Lombardi, to me is just, it's a massive overreaction from what is actually happening.
Well, and it's not only not fair, it's just not true. That's the point of it. It's just not true. Like, unless you, and I don't say this just to Chargers fans, because I say this to my friends all the time, because I have friends that follow all different teams. Every fan base, you want your team to win, of course.
Yeah.
But at most fan bases, primarily, at least closely, only watch their teams play. So they don't see what happens in other games. And those same decision makings, those same calls happen all around the league. I mean, it's a hard league to win it. It's a hard league to be efficient every single drive, every single play. That's the goal. That's what you want to happen. That's what you need to happen to win a Super Bowl. But to think that there's like something way better out there than what we have here in LA with this coaching staff you're just not watching other football teams play and other decision making going on.
Yeah.
So I know it's been a rough 2-week stretch, but now we get an Eagles team that has a former Chargers coach and Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen.
Yeah.
And it should be a fun matchup. We got lucky too that we get the 105 kick. Don't have to do an early kickoff this morning.
Yeah.
And so it's not a huge change for this Chargers routine. So just sticking with what we just already mentioned with the the pass rush, the right side of the offensive line struggling. The one thing I will say about these schemes and play calls and coaching staff that I've been a little head scratching with is they're not giving extra help to that right side. Like, your weakness is on that side. Other teams know your weakness is on the right side. We're going to talk about Matthew Judon just got elected into the Hall of Fame last week because of his performance. Now you go up against a pretty good defensive front with the Eagles. You said they don't blitz, but they are very formidable still with those front four.
Yeah.
You expect them to give extra help on the right side this week?
Joe Lombardi said that they've been chipping with their tight ends, and I think that will continue.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to do more than that. Like, I think, for whatever reason, they think Storm Norton is much better than he actually is. I don't really know. Like, I think he's been a very mixed bag. And
he's played admirable. We'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah. In the games that he's been good, he's fine. He's a serviceable replacement. People are still pissed about the Dallas game, and that's fine. I think that one from an offensive lineman standpoint is more justifiable because there's no film on Micah Parsons. You have no idea what the Cowboys are doing in that one. Yeah. And, Pro Football Focus had him with 8 pressures. When I watched the film back, I had him with 6. I gave 2 extra ones to Michael Schofield. So I had 6 and 5 as opposed to 8 and 3, which isn't great, but 6 is better than 8, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. So the Eagles don't have a Matthew Judon. Like, I think Josh Sweat is their best pass rusher at this point on the edge. So I'm not expecting a ton of help is what I'm trying to say here, because I don't think the staff would look at this as a matchup where, okay, like, this is a complete liability. Like, we have to provide help. I think they would trust Storm to not wreck their game plan today.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think they'll just scheme up maybe hopefully some more quickness. Getting the ball out a little quicker, and hopefully Justin Herbert just can see things a little better today and get it back. This defense, this John Gannon led defense. Let's talk about that a little bit. It's kind of like it's similarities, at least, to what the Chargers run in a sense. Like they do those 2 high safeties, so. I know everyone is going to be crying for deep shots and aggressive play and whatnot, but we may not see that today just because of what the defense gives them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very similar philosophy as the Chargers, right? They do it out of a 4-3 as opposed to a 3-4. Mm-hmm. And they don't blitz. Brandon Staley's not a crazy blitzer, but I think he's like 21st or 22nd in blitz rate right now. Last time I looked at Pro Football Reference. So it's similar philosophically. But, this is going to be a game where they're going to have to be patient. And that's what Brandon Staley said last week after the game, is that he felt like Justin had more opportunities to check the ball down and take what the defense gave him. And he wasn't able to do that. And it's hard for these, top tier quarterbacks to be patient and check the ball down every single play. But that's what you have to do. And if you do it against this Eagles defense, you can have success. If you look at what the Raiders did against the Eagles, it was a lot of dink and dunk, and it was a lot of yards after catch plays, and they put up 33 points. So people are going to be mad today because there's not going to be a ton of deep shots, but as long as the Chargers are scoring points, I don't really care how it comes. Yeah, if they're running the ball 35 times, great. I think they can probably do that in this one too. So to me, you just have to get back on track in terms of the points, make things a little bit easier for Justin Herbert in terms of processing. They're running a ton of RPO action. I expect that to continue today against, a 2 high shell. But like I said, just get back on track in terms of points. Then against a team that's not doing so much, cover 2 high shells, then you can, start pushing the ball down the field. But just be a smooth operation today is really what I'm looking for from the offense.
Well, I think you tweeted it out earlier this week, and I want to say it was from an Athletic article or something, so you can correct me on that. But essentially it was a piece about, kind of Staley's defense and how to beat it. And there was, conversation with Matt LaFleur, Packers head coach, who they kind of tore apart the Staley defense for the Rams last year in the playoffs. And one of the things he said, which I've I've tried to echo this, but I think it was very interesting to hear an actual coach say this is, this defense dares you to run the football
Yep.
and be boring. Like
Yep.
as soon as you get cocky or you want to throw the deep shot, that's where this defense gets you. And so they want to lull you into just be boring, run the football, take the dink and dunk. And most offensive coordinators, I don't know why, but it's like, will they eventually get trigger happy and they're like, no, or they hear the fans saying, be aggressive or do this, and they take their shots and it doesn't work. So if the defense is going to give you those underneath stuff all day, take it all day and just move the ball down methodically down the field, get your points, and keep the Eagles' offense off the field, who's probably going to run the football a lot, which we know this defense hasn't been great against.
Yeah. So I think, there's a lot that goes into calling plays, right? That people, don't really get because, there's video games and they see high schoolers or whatever. I don't know what really goes into this, but when you're calling plays for a team that has the worst run defense in the league, like that's going to impact how you call plays. And I think we've been seeing that a little bit with Joe Lombardi. And so I expect them to be, smooth and efficient and allow Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Jalen Guyton and hopefully Josh Palmer and Austin Eckler to, take these chances and get these yards after the catch and just methodically move the ball down the field. Like we saw, the first week in Washington where they had that great opening drive for, 7 minutes or whatever it was. Yeah. I think that's more of what we'll see. And later on in the game, if you're able to do that successfully and get some play action shots down the field, great. But like I said, as long as you are smoothing out the operation, that's what I care about. Like get rid of the drops, get rid of the miscommunications, protect Justin Herbert, and I think we'll be fine. It's just, for me, it's about the quality of the operation as opposed to are they getting these massive 50-yard chunk plays? If they happen, great. But that's not the primary objective for the offense today, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then it comes down to execution and just successfully executing the game plan and the play calls and throwing accurate balls and catching footballs like that. Yeah. That helps too when you catch them.
Yeah, I know. Nobody else, like you talked about, not wanting to, put some blame on Justin Herbert. Nobody's really wanting to blame Keenan Allen for what's been happening. Yeah. I'm wearing a shirt today for Keenan Allen. He's a fantastic player. He's still on pace for a great season, but he's second in the league in drops. Yeah. And like nobody is really wanting to acknowledge his fault in that. And it's the same thing with Mike Williams. Mike Williams is tied for fourth in drops. Yeah. Jared Cook is tied for second in drops among tight ends. That one's less surprising because he's always kind of been that player. Yeah. But Keenan Allen and Mike Williams have to step up today. These drops are happening at very poor moments.
Critical moments.
Very, very critical moments. Mike Williams, gets a deep over route shot to him. Justin Herbert makes a great play, steps up through pressure, steps up in the pocket, and drops a beautiful ball to him. And Mike Williams drops it. Is it a tough catch? Sure. But you have to make that play if you're Mike Williams. Instead, led to a punt. And I believe that was one where Ty Long almost got it blocked. Yeah. Then late in the fourth quarter, when the game is still within reach, you have a third down. Keenan Allen gets open in a slant. Justin Herbert throws it right on the money. And it goes right through Keenan Allen's hands. So these best players on the team have to be playing that at their best. Really, like, if we're being completely honest, of the best players who are on the Chargers, it's been Derwin James and Austin Eckler the last few weeks. And everybody else has not really played well. And that needs to change.
Yeah, I mean, let's get to the defense now because, I mean, Joey Bosa, and I know he hasn't been, like, bad. He's getting double teamed and this and that. Yeah. But when you're a superstar of his caliber, we need to hear his name a little more, not just on the stat sheet, but at least like getting pressures, being involved. And I feel like he's been a ghost these last few weeks. And I know, again, he's getting a lot more attention. He gets held a lot, but I mean, that's what happens. I mean, we cover Aaron Donald. That happens to Aaron Donald, but he still gets his name called at some point in the game in critical moments. And we need to see that from Joey Bosa today. And it might not be in the sack category, but this is a heavy run team. Or at least they were last week, finally. That's what they should be anyway with the quarterback they have. And they were last week. And they dominated the game running the football with their a stable of running backs. Not even having their starter, but having three different backs and Jalen Hurts running the football. So Joey Bosa, I think, is going to need to have a big game in terms of run support. And if he can get some sacks too, obviously that's huge. But I just think having him on the edge, forcing guys in the middle, into your, Linval Joseph, I think has played very well. Underrated, hasn't been talked about a lot this year, but I think he's played great.
Yes, I agree.
Having Justin Jones back is huge. I think his impact last week was great. Just we saw a huge improvement in the run defense just having him back. And Joey Bosa hopefully can help in that regard too. What's your thoughts on him and his season so far?
Well, it's been disappointing. You know, it really has been. And again, very similar conversation to Justin Herbert the last 2 weeks. There's a lot of factors that go into that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's being double teamed at I think a higher rate than last year. You know, in previous years. But Joey needs to take advantage. Like the double teaming thing is not new for him. Like he's always been the double team guy.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen him, you know, take advantage of his actual rushes. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of contributing factors there. You know, the team can't stop the run, which, you know, hurts his ability to have effective rush opportunities. That he's getting double teamed. The other pass rushers are not doing a great job around him. But I think in this one, it's a good opportunity for him because I look at what the Eagles have on the offensive line, and I don't really see a reason for them to chip and double team Joey Bosa in this one. You have Lane Johnson, who, you know, has been struggling with some mental health issues, but he's arguably the best right tackle in the sport. And Jordan Mailata on the other side is a very, very good left tackle. So to me, like I don't look at this one as a matchup where I expect a ton of double teams. I expect them to trust Lane Johnson on an island, and hopefully Joey Bosa is able to win some of those opportunities. So you got to stop the run and allow Joey Bosa to, you know, pin his ears back like we're used to seeing. But I'm not like super concerned about Joey Bosa in this one in a similar fashion to that. I'm not super concerned about Justin Herbert in this one. But you're right. They need it. They need a Bosa game. Like this needs to be a Buffalo Bosa game because you're down potentially 3 starting corners in this matchup. So the best way to counteract that is to have a really effective pass rush and get after the quarterback. So I agree. This is a big one for Joey Bosa.
Yeah. And you know, obviously it helps your pass rush too if your offense can get out to a lead and force the other offense to throw the football, which hasn't happened the last few weeks.
Yeah.
So I mean, like you said, there's many factors that go into it, and Staley has been shy, which I always love about him. He's very honest, and he's even said he needs to do a better job scheming things up to free up Bosa and get him involved. But yeah, you know, he's a superstar. I mean, we've all talked about it. He's top 3 probably pass rusher in the game, and to have so far the season he's had is, you know, it's disappointing. He's not trash. He's not a bum. He's not nothing like that. Like no one needs to overact. He just hasn't lived up to his potential, I think. You know, still the effort's there. You know, it's not like he's out there like not trying. So everyone needs to not say that. He just hasn't gotten home yet. But I think he will. And this could be definitely a good game for him to do that. Like you said, if they're not chipping him and he gets those one-on-one matchups or just having a guard help, but he can get it to the outside and use that speed rush, we could see him really, really take over a game, which would be huge for this team. And I think it's going to be necessary to win this game.
Yeah. So little flex here. I interviewed Sean Phillips earlier this week.
Flex, baby.
On the Guilty as Charged podcast. And one of the things I asked him about was, you know, as a star pass rusher, like what's the mentality against the double teams? And he said, like, you've just got to be consistent. You know, a lot of fans like expect every game to be a sack heavy game for these pass rushers, but sacks come in bunches. And so you just have to trust that process and trust that mentality. And, you know, take advantage of these one-on-one opportunities when they do come. So today could be a big game for Joey Bosa, and I hope it is because they need that to happen. You know, I think it needs to be a big Mike Williams day. It needs to be a big Keenan Allen day, and it needs to be a big Joey Bosa day.
Yeah, you mentioned the secondary really banged up. How concerned are you with that? You know, luckily they're facing a team that, you know, no shade at Jalen Hurts, but they're not a great prolific passing team. They have some talent in the receiver room, but nothing crazy. So I don't think they got lucky, I should say, in their time to be injured of playing a team that runs this style of offense. But how concerning is it to you with how banged up they are?
I am mildly to very concerned. I think, you know,
it's quite the spectrum.
I know we've been very, like, if you asked me to put a scale on it, I probably would put it at like a 7. So I'm not like full 9
out
or
of
10
8 or
panic.
out of 10.
Yeah, out of 10. So I think I'm not like full panic, and a lot of that is because of the scheme that we talked about, right? Like Brandon Staley, I have full confidence that he's going to be giving his former special teams corners a lot of help. Like that's just built into the scheme. But you still have to take advantage of the one-on-one opportunities when presented. And, you know, I think I do not really trust anybody on this team to stop Devontae Smith at this point. You know, we talked about Chris Harris before on this show, and I've been very critical of him on our show. And if he's the third corner, you know, that's fine. It's whatever. I'll deal with it. But you're starting Keemon Hall and Ryan Smith in this one, likely, unless Tavon Campbell can somehow manage to play. So you're starting 2 special teams players on the outside, and then you're starting Chris Harris, who's I think hitting the decline of his career in the slot. So I don't know. Luckily, they don't have a ton of like great receivers. Like if this were next week against Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, I'd be probably at a 25, like pushing the panic button. Like this is crazy. This is not going to be good. But luckily they have Derwin James and Nasir Adderley who can kind of keep a roof on things. Derwin probably is on Dallas Goedert a lot. But if this were like a big Quez Watkins week, I wouldn't be all surprised. But yeah, it's not a pretty sight. But like I said, I think the scheme helps them out a lot.
Inactive list hasn't come out yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I would assume Mark Webb will be active for this one. Yeah, you agree?
Yeah, because Alohi Gilman is the other piece of that where he is also probably inactive. So Trey Marshall probably is the 3rd safety in this one, former Bronco, and then Mark Webb will be the 4th safety. So it's in a rough spot. And then because of the depth purposes, like if anything happens to any of the 3 starters in this one, you have Keandre Thomas, who I didn't even know they had until this week on the practice squad. When I went and looked at it, I assumed that it was still Dante Vaughn. So it's a rough spot all around, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and it's rough, but luckily with the opponent they're playing, what they said, it's a good game to have these guys out to get healthy long term. Like none of these are long term real injuries. It's getting these guys back for the stretch because this is still a good football team. I know it's been a rough 2 weeks, but this is a good football team that can make a playoff push. Absolutely. We're just at the halfway point, and this is a game you turn it around. So let's wrap it up with this. Who do you like in this one? I think it's gonna be a fun contest. Anytime you could travel east, it's a good time. You're giving those Eagles fans 3 more hours to drink in the parking lot, so it's gonna be a raucous crowd out there at Lincoln Financial Field. We're looking for our Bolts to bounce back. Who do you like?
It's going to be a tough environment for sure, and I still expect the Chargers to win. I think the advantages on the offensive side are just so much greater than the disadvantages on the defensive side that they're dealing with, because you have Justin Herbert, you have Mike Williams, you have Keenan Allen, you have Austin Eckler. I'm hoping that this is a Josh Palmer game too. I would love to see him get more involved. So I think the offense will still take care of things. I expect them to get back on track. Initially, when I made my predictions in our article that I wrote and on our podcast, I said 30-20. But the lack of corners, I'll give the Eagles an extra 3 points, 1 extra scoring possession. So I think it'll be 30-23 Chargers.
Okay. Yeah. I like the Chargers too. I can't see this coaching staff and Justin Herbert losing 3 in a row. I just can't see it.
No.
This fan base will go down in flames if that does happen. So let's hope I'm right and we're right. But yeah, I just think they're going to get things corrected. I think, like you said, the offensive scheme last week was pretty solid. It just wasn't executed well. So hopefully we'll just see better execution today.
Yeah.
Take what the defense gives them, be methodical, just move the ball down the field, be efficient, take time off the clock, because the Eagles are going to run the football. And so you want to keep the ball out of their hands, because otherwise they're going to try to be very efficient running it. And hopefully a big game from Justin Jones again today. Hoping sure up that run defense. But I like the Chargers as well. I think they get it. I think what's the spread? This is like a point, isn't it? Like
it's Chargers 1.5 is the spread.
Yeah, so almost a pick 'em, but I would for sure take that. I think the Chargers won by at least 3, so I would take the Chargers points for sure.
Yeah, and I think heading into the season, I had the Chargers coming out of Philadelphia with a win and at 5-3. So it's been a different result, a different path to getting to that point. But, get a win today, get back on track offensively and in the win-loss column. And I think the rest of the season is, still trending up. I think there's just been so much negativity because of the 2 losses, because a bye week was kind of sandwiched in there. Mm-hmm. But I think the Chargers can still be a very good team, still challenge for a high seed in the playoffs. And that starts back up today, I should say.
Yep, that it does. And I think we'll have a good result. So I hope you enjoy the game. For all of us, we will be at Golden Road here in just a couple hours previewing the Rams-Titans game this Sunday. A bunch of us will be at the game at SoFi as well. I'll actually be on CBS before the game out in front of SoFi. So if anyone's tuning in there, check that out.
And you guys are doing for the Sunday night football game for the Chargers too.
Yes, exactly. So we're doing today, 1 p.m. show at Golden Road for the Rams Titans. And then in 2 weeks on the 21st, we'll do the same thing at Golden Road for the Chargers and Steelers game, which is going to be another great game. So, but thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully the Chargers bounce back. We think they will. We know they will. Big game for Justin Herbert. Let's see it. Steven, appreciate you always, my man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yep. Everyone enjoy the Sunday. If you're going to drink, be safe, have fun, and we'll talk to you all here soon.